This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 38 of the Wisdom by Wessa show on the Horse Radio Network. This is Mike Donnell.
I'm Casey Wilbanks-Coletti.
And this is Sophia Geller. Welcome to Wisdom by Wessa on the Horse Radio Network.
This podcast is brought to you by the Western and English Sales Association, WESA, which provides the world's largest trade events for retailers, manufacturers, and sales representatives of the equestrian industry. We feature exclusive interviews with noteworthy Western and English personalities, retailers, and exhibitors who you've always wanted to talk to. Don't miss out on all the news for manufacturers and retailers in the equine industry. Sophia, this is the first Wisdom by WESA interview that we've had since the trade show in January, and I just thought it would be nice if you shared some of your insights from the show.
Yes, so we had slightly more exhibitors in 2020 than we did last year, and about the same amount of buyers, but some buyers who haven't been to the WESA show in recent years actually came back to sort of celebrate WESA's past, present, and of course our future, as well as the last show in Denver, and next year it's going to be in Dallas.
I felt it, and I heard so many people talking about, my goodness, this is our last time in Denver. So many successful years there, and I'm sure it'll be much success in Dallas as well. What were some of your takeaways and some of your favorite highlights from the show in January?
Well, one highlight, of course, was the entire Wisdom by Wessa team being on site. So thank you guys again for coming over. And then we also had a flash mob planned or performed on Friday night, which went really well, followed by a super fun concert by Josh Ward. The balloons that were supposed to drop actually fell down sort of midway of the first song, so that didn't really go as planned, but people were sort of just playing along or dancing with the balloons, so it was still fun. And then another favorite is, of course, always the giveaways. This year we had a little special Denny backpack, which we handed out to people who gave us a WESA interview. And the backpack was just to sort of pack up your things and to follow us along to Dallas for the first show at the DMC in 2021.
It was so nice to be there. Thank you so much for having all of us. I can speak on behalf of Mike and the crew at Horse Radio Network, Jennifer and Glenn. I know we all enjoyed being there. And my daughter Kingsley absolutely adores her horse backpack that she got there, as she affectionately calls it, WESA. So it was great to be there. And I do look forward to Dallas, as I know everybody else does too. And as always, you have a great interview lined up for us today. And we're going to let Mike introduce her and talk to this wonderful lady.
Losing your horse's reins while pleasure riding or when it's drinking or eating while you're mounted is annoying, to say the least. When competing in rodeos, barrel races, roping, and other events, it's downright dangerous. If your young children are riding by themselves, losing reins is the last thing you want to happen. Molly Dickinson had always worried about dropping her reins when she started riding as a young girl, and even more so when her children started. So she invented a solution to the problem of lost reins, which subsequently resulted in a booming business, which she has named Booma Rein. Molly joins us today to tell that story. Molly, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us here on Wisdom by WESA.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share Booma Rein with you.
Well, when we chatted at the show, a few weeks ago, I thought this would be a good show, a good topic for our listeners to hear about. And I'm so glad that you had the time. And so let's just talk about this for a bit. First, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about the product. Casey probably is more familiar with the application than am I. But you and I will also talk about the success you've had in the business side.
Okay, thank you. Well, I am a stay-at-home mom, but I grew up on a ranch with my parents, and I rode my horse to country school. I attended a country school that was started by my grandparents, and I was the only one in my class, and my aunt was a teacher. We never had a snow day because they picked us up in a tractor or we rode our horses. So I had a very simple childhood, and horses were a huge part of that. I was on a horse anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a day checking cattle, riding to school, riding them into softball practice, you name it, I took my horse. And so I have been riding horses my entire life. I later on married a cattleman, and we have a feedlot and cattle, and I continue to ride horses and buy horses for the feedlot. And then a couple of years ago, when my kids started riding, I saw a need for something to prevent them from ever losing their reins again. And so I made a very crude rendition of what is now a Booma Rein back in the day. And that was just so when I was opening gates or fixing fence and I'd look over and see the kids on their horses, I didn't have to worry about them getting tangled in reins or losing them or just rein management. You know, horses get tangled in them and break them and whatever. So it was a very helpful little invention that I came up with. And then a few years later, I heard a story about a barrel racer who lost her life after she lost control of her riding reins. And I asked the lady I rode with, because I am not a barrel racer, and I said, don't barrel racers have something to tether their riding reins to their saddle so you never lose them? And she's like, I've never seen anything like that. And I said, I'll make you one. Well, that night, I feel like God gave me this idea. It popped in my mind, and it's exactly what Booma Rein looks like today. My husband said, what are you doing? I said, I am inventing a safety rein. Go to bed. I'm fine. And I stayed up and made my safety rein. And the next day I put it on my horse and I said, wow, where has this thing been my entire life? And so I actually ended up patenting the invention 3 days later. And I have been running after Booma Rein ever since.
What an amazing little story. Casey, You're there, aren't you?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and
you're a barrel racer. You talk about this. Sure.
Well, one thing that popped out to me right away, obviously, as a mom to a 3-year-old little girl who's starting to ride, all those extra fears that come with motherhood in general anyways, but then putting them on a horse, whether it be a pony or whatnot, and then just going through all the learning stages, this would sure be a comforting addition, especially for a child. But as you mentioned, I'm very familiar with the story you're talking about of the young lady who lost her life and when you created this. And so many useful causes for this. And I just want you to kind of walk us through, just all the different ways this can be used in so many different ways. It doesn't matter if you're competing or trail riding, or it really doesn't if you just kind of want it for extra security or just maybe out of your laziness that you just drop your reins and they're there when you're trail riding or something like that. So walk us through your thought process on all those different avenues.
Well, Booma Rein can be used in every discipline of horse riding from what I can see. My son was roping in 4-H and his little hand had dropped his roping rein so that he could recoil his lariat. And in that meantime, his horse would shake or put his head down to scratch at a fly or anything, and the reins would, drop out of his reach. And so I didn't want him to have the original Booma Rein on in case he dallied. I don't think it would be a big problem, but if he ever did dally the Booma Rein in, I just didn't want it to be a problem. So I actually made him a homemade, what I call a direct rein, because it's not adjustable and it's got a swivel hook on the end, and you can hook it to like a D-ring or your breast collar or something, and then you can still attach it to the riding rein. And somebody saw it that is an English rider and said, what is that? And I said, well, it's a different take on the Booma Rein. And they're like, that would work great on, fox hunting or eventing or even on like your endurance riding. And so I went to work on making another rein that I call the direct rein, and it is non-adjustable. It's a 13-inch Booma Rein, and it works great for English and endurance, and you can use it on Western saddles as well. And so I've tried to make Booma Rein across the board for any discipline of riding, but the main thing we use it for is trail riding. Trail riding is great. You can take a picture, you can pony someone's horse, you can let the horses eat or drink. If you're tying on your coat or fixing a sandwich or adjusting your helmet, whatever you're doing, if all of a sudden the horse yanks the reins out of your hands, you don't have to really panic and jump off and get the reins, especially if you're a kid or a shorter lady like myself. Getting on and off just to pick up your reins becomes a headache. And so Booma Rein can really be used for more than just your speed events. You can use it for trail riding. You can use it for roping. You can use it for endurance. And like I said, the new English Rein, which I got 3 days before I came to the WESA show this year, it was a big hit at the show, and I sold quite a few of them, and that's just going to a different discipline. And so I really feel like Booma Rein can really be used with every saddle in the world.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about the material it's made out of, the durability, things of that nature, and also explain exactly how one attaches it, how it works.
All right. Well, the original Booma Rein is a 3-foot bungee-like material. Obviously, I did my own technology. I made it the strength, the weight, and the thickness and everything we did ourselves so that I had something that worked great. And you don't even really realize that it's on your rein until you need it. And then I got to thinking, when I was originally making them on my back counter, I needed a safety snap or something to give away in case the horse did get hooked on a gate panel or a tree branch, another horse, whatever. Horses get into stuff, and we know that. And so I needed a safety snap to release so that I didn't create a 3-point harness on the horse. So there is a safety snap on every safety rein that will release at 115 pounds per square inch and let go of that rein. And that is a huge safety factor. I also use that to snap on directly to the rein in speed events. So when barrel racers switch arms, when they're going around different barrels, they can just snap the Booma Rein directly in the middle of their rein, and they don't have to worry about it on one side or the other. And you still have the flexibility. But the Booma Rein, the biggest thing is it works with the horse. It doesn't prevent the horse from having its natural movement. So if you're really running on a horse, and they hit a hole and their head goes down between their legs, the Booma Rein's going to go with them. And then when they come back up, it's going to bring that riding rein back into your control. And if you still can't reach your rein, you can always reach the Booma Rein and pull it back into your control. We had a horse that when he would shake on the trail ride, he would shake his reins right over his head. It was just the perfect way he shook. And several times my son would yell and say, "Mom, look, the Booma Rein saved me." He could grab the rein and do a 1-rein stop. And so, the Booma Rein works for so many things. You don't have any more of that slapping the horse's head and going, "All right, lift your head up, buddy," but do it before you take a step into the rein that's dangling on your ears. You don't have that anymore. You don't have that fear or that, "Oh my gosh, are we going to get in an accident here?" The Booma Rein starts working for you the minute you clip it to the rein. And so even before I get on my horse and I clip it on, my kids can, adjust stuff. We can tighten the cinches, whatever they need to do. And I don't have rein management. They can get on. My daughter, when I invented it, was very little. And she is a very independent little cowgirl. And she didn't want her mom holding her horse while she got on, because I didn't do that for her brothers. And so, it gives them the independence to climb on their horse, even if it takes them 10 minutes, and they still get control of their reins. I don't have to worry about that horse stepping on it, getting anxious with the pressure around its head or any of that. And so the Booma Rein starts working for you the minute you put it on. I always tell people that I wear my seatbelt every time I get in the car. I don't drive any different, but it's there when I need it. And the Booma Rein is to horse riding what a seatbelt and automatic braking and your airbags are to a car. It's there when you need it. It's there to prevent an accident. And if the accident does happen, it's there to keep you safe. And so Booma Rein is so handy when it comes to any discipline of horse riding. If you can keep in control of your riding reins, most likely you have, your braking system and your steering wheel.
Molly, let's move away a little bit from the function of it. You do a great job of explaining it, but you started with a hobby and now you've got a business. Part of that business is you sell these. Now, how much of your business, and is it growing, being sold through retail, through tax shops, but also can people order it online?
Yes, thanks for asking. So I was very persistent getting into WISA in my first year in 2017 because I heard that I needed to get there. I was a brand new company. I didn't even have product until I heard I got a booth there and I had to airdrop it in. At WISA, I started getting retail stores, which was very helpful in placement of Booma throughout the United States and now the world. We're in several countries. And just getting Booma out there has been a huge benefit for us because now Booma brand, people know about it. We are currently in 313 retail stores in 7 countries.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, and so you can also order it on my website, and we're also on Amazon.
Okay, you talked a bit about how WISA had helped you gain recognition, and we thank you for that. Most people who are creative like you and have a product, you invented a second product. Is this the limit of what we're going to see, or do you have some other ideas in the back of your mind, even if you're not going to share them yet?
Well, Booma Rein, this was God's idea. I wasn't looking to start a business. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I really felt like God gave me this idea, and he was using me to get Booma out there because he had somebody he wanted to save with this rain. And maybe we've already saved that person and Booma is going to go away. It doesn't look like it, but I did create the Booma Direct. I did that fairly soon after the original Booma Rein. I just haven't launched it until this year just because I wanted to see how the original Rein was going. And then I do have some other ideas. They would not have proprietary means at all. One of the things we use for Boomas, I always keep extra with me. My son always comes over to the horse barn without a belt, so we use Booma Rein as a Booma belt, and it's the belt that grows with you. We joke. I've had to take my original Booma Rein off and use it as a tourniquet on a trail ride when I told somebody not to follow me. And she did, and she ended up getting fairly beat up and cut up, and we had to put a tourniquet on to get home. So they're handy to have, it's handy to tie stuff on and use. But I really am fairly busy with Booma and the two different products I have. The original comes in 8 colors, and the Direct just comes in the black. I'm fairly busy with the 2 of those. Just with keeping up with the retail stores and shows like yourself and advertising and running the social media, and then also being a mom and a rancher's wife. So I'm fairly busy. I haven't really had a lot of time to think about it. Right now, you're talking to Booma Rein. I do it. I do Booma Rein. So if you get a Booma Rein in the mail, I ship it. So it's a one-woman show right now.
Well, I think it's a pretty good one-woman show. The business is growing. One quick question, and I was going to ask this before because I was watching some video. You got a lot of colors available. The little girl in the video liked hers because it was pink. Do you see certain colors being more popular in certain reasons, or you just decided to offer a bunch of colors?
Well, when I first came up with Booma Rein, I really thought it would be for, your play days and your rodeo and your barrel racers and speed events. And so I went to local tack stores and said, hey, what are the popular colors? And that's where I came up with the 8 colors. And it was what was selling, what goes to, and I think I have color that does really well. And then all of a sudden the color that I didn't think, I have a run of that color. So they all sell fairly well. Obviously, brown and black are the top runners, but as far as the 8 colors, they all go fairly well. So it's fun to watch. It's fun to see.
Well, and you've been fun to talk to. We appreciate you taking the time to tell us the Booma Rein story. We wish you luck with it. We enjoyed talking with you at the WISA show, and we're looking forward to hearing more about your company as you grow.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it, and if you guys would like to have a Booma Rein, just send me an email and I'll ship one out and you can ride with it and then send me a testimony. I would love that.
Okay. Thank you so much. The show notes and links from today's show can be found at wisdombywesa.com. And of course, feedback, we'd love to hear yours. And there's a contact link on that website.
The Wisdom by WESA show will be published on the 15th and 30th of every month. You can listen on most of your favorite podcast players, and you can also listen on the Horse Radio Network app on your iOS or Android phone. You just search Horse Radio Network in the App Store. It's free and it's super easy to use. Be sure to visit all the great shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com. Thanks for listening to the Wisdom by WESA podcast. WESA, where the industry meets.